Hello, everybody. This is the third and final video in a series of videos about submitting rooms for the Room Jam. This one just has some basic do's and don'ts on things that can be helpful or should definitely be avoided because they can cause problems. The first do is make all kinds of rooms. We've improved the logic of the randomizer pretty substantially to allow things like segmented rooms, fancy item rooms, weird combinations of requirements to all work correctly. If you want to make a room that has a jump requirement or some arcane combination of things that needs to be done, great. Want to make entrance rooms that go up instead of down? Absolutely. We have support for all kinds of cool things now, and we just don't have rooms for them. So if you have some bold ideas, go ahead and submit them. I'm likely to approve them. Second, make rooms with interesting combinations. I touched on this earlier, but we can do all sorts of weird things now as far as, for example, we had the room that requires glove or fairy. We could do ors, we could do ands, we could do interesting requirements of items. And so we can make some fun things like a jump required room. The last do, make sure that you use version 4.3 to generate your rooms. If you use an earlier version of the beta or an earlier version of the randomizer mainline, the format won't be correct and it will cause issues. So make sure you're up to date. Here's some don'ts. The first don't is don't put items and other things that can be unlocked on the same page. Let me give an example of what I mean by that. If you adjust this property in the top of the editor, you can see where the divisions of each page are. I like to call these pages, sometimes they're screens or other things that people call them, but generally each room in Zelda 2 is 4 pages wide. And you can see the boundaries on each page. The game keeps track of whether a thing has been picked up or not. And you can see here in the item availability tab. The game keeps track of whether a thing has been picked up or not with a single bit that affects everything on the entire page. You may or may not have known this, but this key door exists in vanilla, in Palace 1. This is a real Palace 1 room. However, at some point in development, they decided, I don't actually like that key door. And so they've marked this item availability flag to be off so that this key door is considered already open when you start the game. However, if we move this candle closer to the door, we see it now has the same issue. The reason for that is there's only a single bit that's tracking whether the thing has been picked up in this screen. And so if the candle is on the same screen as the key door, once you have picked one of them up, the other will despawn the next time you go into the room. This is the source of the despawning elevator bug, but it was also a bug in previous versions of the randomizer with item rooms. If you open this door, then die, the item is considered already to have been picked up. And so the item will despawn and disappear forever, leading to soft locks. In order to avoid this, make sure whenever you build an item room or similar kind of room, I'm going to go to the vanilla item. Well, this is a slightly modified item room as an example. We'll zoom in a bit on this. Make sure when you place your item that the screen that contains the item is different than the screen that contains the key door blocking it. The second thing that you want to avoid is don't use the elevator enemy. Let me give an example of that. In this room, if we look at our map commands down here, we can say here's a extra object, which is index 15, and we can see it's number 50. It's an elevator. It does what you think it does. However, if we go into the enemy list, there's also number, where is it? No, here it is, number 13. There is an elevator enemy. This elevator enemy is very slightly offset from its tiles, and it is, as far as we can tell, a early development version of the elevator. However, This causes a ton of problems. It's not actually used in the vanilla game. The biggest problem with the elevator enemy is that it's an enemy. And if there are too many enemies on screen or too many slight spots used, or say, for example, you kill a kingbot, this will despawn like other enemies. This causes big problems. Because a despawned elevator, you could fall down its shaft, and that causes wrong warping issues. So don't use it. If you want to use an enemy, if you want to use an elevator, make sure that you're using the elevator item in the map commands list, and not the elevator enemy in the enemies list. Number 3, don't make rooms where you can get stuck. I know we have some rooms that are kind of borderline on that, but if you have a room that has a drop down or some other place that you can't necessarily get out of if you screw up, make sure there is at least some way to die. Some lava, an enemy, fire. Players don't always have up A enabled, and we want to make it friendly for new players who don't have that. There should be at least a way to get out of any kind of a pit if you get stuck, at the very least, by killing yourself. And finally, number 4, don't use invisible walls. It's okay to use invisible walls if you're making a room that is a variation on a vanilla room. For example, the elevators in GP that have invisible walls leading to 50/50 statues. If you want to make a different one of those, that's fine, because we assume that runners are familiar at least with vanilla. This is why we don't get rid of, for example, the vanilla pass-through room with a big invisible wall in it. But beyond variations of vanilla rooms, vanilla walls just create a knowledge barrier that's very unfriendly to new players and very unfun. So if your room uses invisible walls, it's likely to be rejected. Sorry. That's it for these do's and don'ts, but if you have other ideas for things that aren't included here that you think are maybe so crazy that they won't work, let me know, but they'll probably work. Thanks again for watching, and thanks again for submitting your rooms for the 2024, room jam. Have a nice day.